Hello, welcome to Exotic Gardening with me, Yorkshire Chris, on this wonderful sunny November day. It doesn't feel like November really, it feels probably more like September because it's lovely and sunny, feels still quite warm, and the garden's still looking relatively good. We haven't had those damaging frosts yet, but they are around the corner. And in this video we're going to have a look at some exciting developments in the greenhouse, and we're going to think about the cold weather that's probably on its way this week. So this is probably my favourite part of the garden. Even now, like I said, well into November, mid-November, we've got the very tender plants, or tenderish plants like the Plectranthus, and this is the giant form, the toilet paper plant, which is standing close to about 1.80 metre tall, still looking good because it hasn't had that frost to blacken off the leaves. And this whole area I'm really pleased with this year. We've got the Xanthodecia down here, which is actually coming to flower at the wrong time of year with these big leaves. This was a division that I did in spring. We've got the Canna, still got its buds ready to unfurl here. We've still got plenty of Iracine and Plectranthus and lots of Coleus down here, all looking vibrant and lush. Like I said, I keep going on about it, we're in mid-November and this is still looking good. And obviously in the last few weeks we looked at my videos where I've been taking cuttings of these tender plants I want to keep for next year, because these actual specimens in the ground will die over winter. So I've taken cuttings of these plants and they're in the greenhouse, and they'll be going onto the windowsills in the house so that I don't have to heat up too much of the greenhouse over winter. I can just heat up the house as normal. These plants will get through on the windowsill as small cuttings. So this is looking great, but it's not long now until the frosts come. We're expecting this week and next week for most of the country we'll get down to 1 to 4 degrees, and when you're getting under 5 degrees at night time, there's a chance of a slight frost, and when you get down to 1 to 2 degrees there's very high chance you're going to get a frost. Definitely you get ground frosts on surfaces like on cars and roofs and grass, and then when you get down to 0 and below, obviously you get the air frost, and that's the damaging first frost that really do blacken everything off. We're getting close to that, so if you haven't brought in your very tender plants, I would strongly urge most of you that live in these areas, inland areas, away from the coast, rural areas, definitely get them inside as soon as you can, because we will get some frost over the next fortnight. Obviously, the normal thing we say about inner city London, the coast, where you're going to get mild locations where you're not going to get that frost, then you've probably got a few more days, if not weeks, to enjoy the more tender plants outside. But like I said, I've taken cuttings of the most tender plants, but I've still got the mother plant, so to speak, out in the garden, still looking great for as long as possible. We'll probably come back this time next week and this Plectranthus probably will be blackened off, but for now I can enjoy this part of the garden, enjoy these wonderful exotic looking plants. Now before we head into the greenhouse, I'm doing one last sweep around the garden for those tender plants that I might have forgotten about. I've just spotted one down here. I've got a potted Aeonium here, which is sort of falling through the grasses. So that's actually in a pot, like I said, so I'll pick this up and move it into the greenhouse before the frosts arrive later this week and next week. So we're in the greenhouse now, and let me show you exactly what I've brought in, because this is everything that's tender that'll be brought in. There's nothing else left to bring in, so if it's not in here now, it'll be spending the winter outside. So let's go through some of the plants that we've brought in, starting by the door where I've got lots of light. We've got this tall Fuchsia Bolivianus, and that you can see there, got some leaves up there, and that is a tender fuchsia. Beautiful flowers, long tubular flowers in sort of spring and summer when it's happy. We've also got my Parajubaea Sunca, which is a palm that doesn't really want to see too much frost. I've just tied it up at the moment so it keeps out of the way a bit. Got the begonia here, Begonia luxurians. This is one of the bigger plants which is flowering. Have taken the odd cutting of that as well. I've also got my brugmansias. Now my brugmansias, I've pretty much taken all this year's foliage off. I've left a few buds there. Off most of it I've taken off because it's very often got lots of bugs and pests on there, and they drop the leaves when the temperature drops over winter and the light levels drop anyway in here. So that is why I've taken all that foliage off. They're in big pots and I really probably won't water them at all over winter. They'll just keep moist in there in the compost already in. Now down here, if I just reach out, you're probably thinking that is a dead plant, but that is actually a dormant plant. That is a Ramosatia pumila, and that basically dies back to the ground in autumn like that. Leave it in a pot, and then come spring you get lots of new growth, pretty much like a cute little colocasia. Dianthes there, doing really well. Got a little begonia going dormant here, a few others going dormant as well. Now down here are some of the plants and cuttings of the Iracine, Party Time and Plectranthus. These will be windowsill plants, so I'll actually bring these into the house very soon. I was just letting the compost settle in here and then finding some space indoors to put them. And obviously I don't want pots that don't look too nice. I will cover the pots when they go on the windowsill so they look nice in the house. Got a few smaller agaves up here. Got my bird of paradise plant. And further down, past my potting station here, we've got the cuttings forming, which we've shown before. Plenty more cuttings in there, which will be rooting. This is the second lot of cuttings. And then on my heated bench, which has got a light above it, this is this year going to be kept sort of about 5 to 10 degrees at soil level. The air temperature will be frost free at about 5 degrees, and that should be fine for all these aeoniums to get through the winter. It's pretty much all aeoniums on here, and then at this end we've got a few begonias that are pretty much going dormant as well, but got a little bit of heat so they don't get too cold over winter. Down below me I have some final aeoniums that I've just pulled up. They're just in here without any soil, so I need to pot them up ideally, but they can be left pretty much like this over winter, providing they're frost free above 5 degrees or 5 degrees. They'll be fine. They look a bit tatty by spring, but then they'll soon bulk up. We've got these seedlings that I showed you a few videos ago of palms, so they'll be fine there. Got a Haniba banana, so this is in a small pot. Well, it's a pot the right size for the plant, but it's still not a very large specimen. This is my sole remaining Haniba, but I have got some more Hanibas on the way, because in this propagator we do have something rather exciting to share. We've got all my cuttings that were in the other propagator that have rooted in pots now, so they're looking good. But over here, this is an Haniba that I've butchered basically to promote it to propagate and form new plants. And you can see the centre there, it looks a bit knobbly and pinkish, and they are new Haniba or onset ventricosum Haniba bananas forming. So next spring there'll be lots of new shoots coming out. We can separate them over the next year and we should get, well, anywhere between 10 and 100 new plants. Because this was a small Haniba, probably closer to sort of 10, 20 plants, I'm assuming, will be propagated. But that's good to see. So that's a quick tour of pretty much everything in the greenhouse. We do have a ginger greenie, which I left out as well, but I brought this one in because it's doing an interesting thing. Because here you can see we've got a spent flower head, so that's finished flowering. But what's unusual about Greenii is that after it's finished flowering, you can get these new plants forming from where the flowers were. So there's a flower head here, that's sort of come off now. And here we've got 2 new shoots. And in the wild, what would happen is this whole stem would fall to the ground as it gets old, and then this would root at this point here to provide new plants, new root contact there. So I can actually propagate this ginger by taking this off, and this will root in a pot. So that is a nice way to propagate Greenii without having to cut up the rhizome. So that's a top tip for you if you grow Hedychium Greenii. Let it flower, and then you can get new plants from the spent flower heads in many cases. Thank you for watching this edition of Exotic Gardening UK with me, Yorkshire Chris. Join me next week where we're doing more in the garden.